What's up? Welcome to Updates with Mr. Warford. This is from my world history, people. I'm coming at you live from an undisclosed location. The lighting is terrible, the background is terrible, but I have a fancy sweater on, so there you go. So we're in Unit 7, okay? The Industrial Revolution, First Industrial Revolution to be exact. And we're in the part of the unit where we talk about new ideas emerging. And what do I mean by ideas? We're talking medical ideas, social ideas, political ideas, all kinds of different things that are going on between 1750 and 1850 and a little bit beyond. So, what are some of these new ideas we're starting to see? Let's check it out. So, in the area of economics, we've already talked about how capitalism is reigning in Britain at this time. It's an economic system where a country's trade and industry are controlled by private ownership for profit. And you probably heard about this in your integrated social studies class freshman year. And it's about competition for resources and the law of supply and demand. People have the ability to work hard to improve their socioeconomic status, but the negative that we start to see, especially in the Industrial Revolution, is that there starts to become this small percentage of the winners of society that own a lot of the means of production, have a lot of the capital, very, very rich, and then we start to see a huge lower class during the Industrial Revolution. So in Britain, especially during the first Industrial Revolution, we see the pros and the cons on display because that's the closest we get to like pure capitalist society where the only thing that rules the day is competition for resources, who can make the best products at the cheaper price, and there wasn't a ton of government involvement. So also in the realm of economics, we get this thing called laissez-faire policies, okay? Laissez-faire, excuse me, was a philosophy that the government should not interfere in the economy at all right? Laissez-faire meaning hands off or let go. The government shouldn't be involved. The free market should reign. This becomes popular with middle-class businesses and upper-class business elites in the early 1800s, laissez-faire. And where they got some of these ideas was a dude named Adam Smith. Adam Smith was referred to as the father of modern economics. He wrote a book in the late 1700s called Wealth of Nations, and he believed that government interference in the economy is bad. Supply and demand should rule the day and operate the economy. He called it the invisible hand that ruled over the economy. Capitalism is fueled by different self-interests that producers have. So if you're interested in making more money, you're going to make the best products at the best price to compete for the money. So he said that that was a good thing. We shouldn't have government involvement in our economy. So Thomas Malthus lived in Britain in the late 1700s, and he starts to notice after the population explosion and urbanization happened, he sees firsthand living in Britain the slums, the unemployment, the terrible living conditions. And he publishes a theory in an essay on the principle of populations. And he said that poverty was going to be unavoidable in a capitalist society. The population was increasing faster than the food supply. And the only checks on population growth at this point and going forward in history were going to be things like war, famine, diseases. As long as the population kept increasing, the poor were going to continue to suffer. He urged families to have fewer children and discouraged handouts to the poor because he said that increasing handouts to the poor would only increase the population more and access to goods was going to be unavailable. And we would reach this, if you look at this graph, the point of crisis. All right, next up is the theory of utilitarianism. I know that's a hard word to say. I can't even say it myself. Utilitarianism. Some reformers thought that laissez-faire policies were bad, okay? Letting the economy just run wild and have all these small percentage of winners and a big percentage of losers in society was bad. Utilitarianism was the idea that society should work for the greatest happiness of the greatest number. Laws should be changed by whether they advance human happiness and reduce human misery. So we start to see calls for better public health codes, better tax laws, improved education, things like that, with utilitarianism. And after the rise of utilitarianism, we see a thing called socialism. And this is another thing we talked about in integrated social studies your freshman year. Socialism is the belief that the means of production, so we're talking land, raw materials, factories, money, should be controlled by society, either by society as a whole or a trusted government. The reaction to unchecked negative aspects of capitalism during the first industrial revolution, that's what socialism was. So poverty, slums, disease, terrible working conditions. People saw these things and they said, we have to improve this by redistributing the wealth, okay? Redistribution of wealth. More equality among citizens, no more division between the very rich and the very poor. We have to redistribute the wealth. That was the basic tenets of socialism at this time in the early 1800s. And with the rise of socialism, history is just a system of reactions. People come up with ideas, people do certain things, and there's an immediate reaction, okay? Communism was a reaction to socialism. So two very important people to the communist theories that come out are Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. So they dismiss the ideas of socialism, the idea that government could redistribute wealth. They wrote books like The Condition of the Working Class in England, the Communist Manifesto. They come up with this theory that supports the idea that all property should be publicly owned and each person should work and get paid according to their ability and according to their needs. There was going to be a necessary class struggle between working class people and middle and upper class people, and revolution was going to change the lives of poor workers. So nothing would be owned by a government and its citizens or the poor and the rich. Everyone would work together and live in community, hence the word communism. So there's never been a purely communist state in the world, but Karl Marx's ideas are going to heavily influence other countries such as Russia, who would become the Soviet Union, and that would begin in the early 1900s, and the ideas of Karl Marx are going to leap forward into the Cold War, which we're going to talk about towards the end of the year. And here's a quote from the Communist Manifesto, and we're going to go over this in class together. If you're working from home, check this quote out in the slideshow. Pretty interesting stuff, and it's going to shape world history going forward. Labor unions, the rise of labor unions. So labor unions are organized associations of workers formed to protect their rights and interests. Initially in Britain, labor unions were illegal. You could not meet together to talk about improving your lot as a factory worker and industrial worker. But in the 1820s, they make them legal, and we start to see organized protests, walkouts of the factory floors, and meetings with their bosses to improve working conditions and wages. A big workers' union that comes about is the IWW, Industrial Workers of the World. New scientific ideas start to emerge. So we get the theory that cells are the building block of all plants and animals and humans. We get Darwin's theories about evolution and survival of the fittest. We get genetics starts to be studied. We get new breakthroughs in the understanding of germs, bacteria. Now, rather than being held down and having your arm cut off in a surgery, they're developing like the beginning phases of anesthesia so that you don't have to bite down on a stick and have your limb chopped off. We start to see the rise of sociology and psychology, so studying the human mind and human behavior. All these different things are new ideas that are coming forward in the first industrial revolution. So what I want you to do with that information, with this video, with the slideshow that's attached, I want us for the next few days to continue to work on that vocab list and that study guide to prepare for your test. If you have any questions for me, let me know. Have a great day.